report. Just remember tonight, as we're doing this webinar, if you have questions that you want to ask, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom meeting and ask all your questions that way, and then we will go ahead and answer them as we come along. And we'll just wait another couple minutes here as people keep coming in. Please watch CTAM website for upcoming events. The next event that we'll have coming up was going to be here in April on the 22nd. We have an Emmy Award-winning production manager who will be giving a webinar for us, and we're excited. So watch our social media and our email posts. We will be giving you more information on that. But mark your calendar because it's April 22nd. And as we have people starting to come in here, we'll just wait like another minute for anybody who is coming in. His name is Richard Hoover, who will be our production designer on April 22nd. And he, like I said before, he's an Emmy Award winner, so please watch our social media on that. And we're just going to give it a moment here. Again, as we're going through tonight, if you have questions that you would like to ask our panel, we'll go ahead and use your Q&A at the bottom of your screen. I see we already have a couple people one person's already dropped in. And we're getting that answered as quick as possible. And we will start here in just a moment. We need some background music. No, Jamie, don't sing, no. And as you know, tonight we're going to try to have an hour meeting, but if we are running and people are still asking questions, all the panelists have agreed to stay on for a longer period of time to continue to answer questions that come up. And I think now let's just kind of get started. We'll try to do a slow start here. We're excited to have all of you here this evening for CTAM's webinar on our theaters reopening. And talking about discussions, we have a panelist here who represent theaters from all across Michigan and of all different sizes and are all different places. So to start off, one of the first questions we had, or inquiries we had when we started making this announcement, was what are the current requirements for the state of Michigan? And if you're ever interested, you can always go to the michigan.gov/coronavirus to always get your most current updates on what the state is requiring for indoor and outdoor activities. Right now, for indoor stadiums and arenas, no more than 375 patrons may be gathered at venues with a seating capacity under 10,000. And I think that's all of our community theaters in the state of Michigan are under 10,000. Keep in mind, at this same time, you must also abide by your social distancing rules of 6 feet. You must also all require your patrons to wear masks and all of your volunteers to be wearing masks at all times. For anything outdoor, you can have no more than 1,000 patrons gathered. And again, keep in mind that you need to keep your social distancing even outside. They're asking that to happen. So what we're going to do, I thought what we would start out tonight, just so everyone here listening knows who we are, I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and tell what theater they're from, and then what has your theater been doing. I will start out. My name is Mary Jo DeNolf, and I am part of Grand Rapids Civic Theater in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And since March 13th of being closed down, we kind of went total shutdown until the summer. And then in the summer, we had this idea of doing our driveway cabarets. We performed in July, August, and September outside to 250 houses. They were 30 to 40-minute cabaret concerts. And that went way more than what we ever thought we would do. In the end of October, we did an outdoor performance in a parking lot. It was Dracula. It was performed on a wagon, let's call it, for a better word. It's like a show wagon that the city let us have for free of charge. And then it was like the outdoor churches where it was just being broadcast into your car with your radio. In December, we were hopeful that we would be able to do Christmas Carol radio play on our stage, but then of course the numbers spiked back up. So we streamed that performance. We have been quiet since, but in April with these new guidelines, we are doing a 10-minute play festival that will be 200 or people less in our auditorium. We hold 750. So we are going to be less than 20% in our auditorium then in May, we're going to do a children's show with the same type of guidelines, social distance, of course, mask being worn. And then June, we're trying to do a concert series inside, and we'll see what the restrictions are at that time. So let's jump over to Amy next.
I am Amy Spadafore. I'm the managing director of Pit and Balcony Community Theater in Saginaw. We performed one whole weekend of a show, which was scheduled for 2 weekends back in March 2020. So that was the first, we ended up canceling the second weekend of that show. And then almost exactly a year ago at this point. We did end up having to cancel the rest of our season last season. But we quickly, you know, as most theater companies did, pivoted to Zoom readings and various virtual ways to stay kind of like top of mind of our patrons. But then as we were recognizing that this was all going to last a lot longer than, you know, we all initially expected, we made the commitment to ourselves and our community that we were going to produce as quickly, as quickly, and as safely as possible. So our 89th season was slated to open in October 2021 with Murder on the Orient Express. Instead, it opened in November 2021 with a brand new script, which was still in manuscript form when we got it from Concord. Theatrical is called The Winkley Murders, and that was a fully produced production on our stage, lights, sound, costumes, masks, everything. No audience. We presented it virtually, pre-recorded and virtually. That was followed by our December show, which was originally going to be Elf the Musical. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen, so we reprogrammed that show to be a one-woman show with a 3-woman chorus who were going to be in big plexiglass boxes singing Christmas carols. That show was the only show that we had to actually cancel completely this year in December because of the rising cases. Then we had planned on doing a virtual fundraiser where we got people from all over the country who had been at, who had performed on Pit and Balcony stage. They recorded themselves at home singing Christmas carols, and we compiled it all together, and it was this awesome thing that I think we're going to keep trying to do in the future, because it was just really cool to get everyone together and see what kind of things they could come up with. I really thought that it was going to be like a point and shoot, but everyone was obviously very creative. And then we opened our doors to audiences for the first time in 11 months this past February. We were going to produce a show that we couldn't produce because of capacity limits and the limits on how many households could be in a room. So we went from producing a show that required a cast of 9 to producing a show called Rogues Gallery by John Patrick Shanley. He wrote that specifically for virtual production during the pandemic. All of his proceeds from the sale and licensing of that show went to the Actors Fund, which was a big reason for us to do it. The other reason was it's a series of monologues. So we were able to rehearse it very safely with 1 actor at a time each night. And our director and stage manager team happened to live together. So it worked out really well that we were able to put only 2 households in the room at a time. We have 280 seats. At that time, we were required to reduce to 20%, which is 56. And so we opened 56 seats, and I think the most we had in the house was 28 during the run of Rogues Gallery, which, as far as I'm concerned, is great. Anybody in the house is excellent. And we are opening Superior Donuts by Tracy Letts tomorrow. That's the only script this season that we have programmed for our main stage, that we programmed a year ago for our main stage this season that we'll be able to produce. And that has just been very lucky because of the size of the cast and the declining cases and the new rules by MDHHS. With the new capacity allowance, we were able to increase to 92 seats for each performance of Superior Donuts. So we've been hustling, I think is the best way to say it.
Great, thanks. And the question came in really quick before I jump to our next person. Actors are wearing masks. Yes, actors wear your mask. So it's not only your audience members who are wearing masks, but it is your actors must wear masks. That's a big one. And all your backstage crew wear masks. Okay, great. Let's jump over to Kirk Wahamaki, please.
Hi there, I'm Kirk Wahamaki, and I'm the artistic director for Muskegon Civic Theater. And last March, we had just finished closing our final show, and we were well into rehearsals and casting with Mamma Mia, at which point we had to jump ship and cancel the rest of our season. We didn't know what to do, and then when they closed our offices and everything, we started first with doing a show. We were lucky enough to have Neil Rosen's wife here in town, who was a television producer in the 60s and 70s, had written a show called Silver Anniversary, which we did a Zoom version of there in April. It was the first thing we did. It was all done from home, recorded on Zoom and edited, and then put up for us, for all our patrons. And we did not charge for it. We felt at that point in time it was important to keep our patrons going and just get them involved in the show. So that's what we did first. And then our next adventure, after speaking to Bruce and the folks over at wonderful Grand Rapids Civic, was to modify their driveway into our fire pit follies. And we proceeded to do that all the way through till October. And I don't remember how many places, but it was close to 200 places we paid. It was, again, basically the same thing. No, it wasn't basically the same thing. Same thing, but different people doing it. That was it. That was a real thing. In October, we decided we would try doing something outside. Because at that point in time, we had canceled at least the first 2 shows of our announced season. And we're looking at seriously canceling a third. So we did a drive-in version of Rocky Horror Picture on Halloween. We were lucky enough to get a stage similar to what Grand Rapids Civic had from the city of Grand Haven, which I called them up and they said, sure. And one of our local supporters, Max McKee, who owns Sand Products Corporation, the Mart Dock, which is just a couple blocks away from our theater, gave us their parking lot. And we bought a transmitter and did just the same drive-in theater. We did 2 nights of that. We were very happy to do that and continue going. And after that, it got a little sketchy there. So we were going, okay, what are we going to do? We did announce our season for the year. And all of a sudden we were not able to do that either. So we had to come up with some other things. We took our classes and we actually had teachers going to pods in communities in their backyards. We requested that they had at least 7 to 10 students, neighborhood students, and we would send a teacher masked to do our theater classes. And that went on Saturdays in the winter, in the cold outside, but our teachers were wonderful and did that. We also did our teachers did a online Christmas show with Christmas monologues and Christmas songs, recorded individually in people's homes. Again, mostly via Zoom, some recorded by a phone or whatever they had handy, sailed in and edited by some very talented people we are lucky to have involved in the theater who are volunteering their services to do these things. And then we knew we needed to do something else. And at that very time, I can't think of his name right now, but had modified Disenchanted, the musical, to a stay-at-home version to be done online and via Zoom. And so we started with that, and we put that out via Showtix and through them. And we had it was pretty good success for it. We recorded it remotely, individually, and trust me, it was a very challenging thing to put 6 girls singing in harmony. You can't do it via Zoom. You got to record each one and edit it together. But again, thanks to some very talented people we have involved, we were able to accomplish that and did very well with that. Our next thing that we're doing is we're going back outside as quickly as we can here. And we're going to actually perform the last show of our season, but in a concert version. We're doing Sister Act, and we're doing it again in the parking lot via transmitters and drive-in stuff with a little more flair than we did last time. And now that we've done it once, we've adapted well to it. And so that's our plan at this point in time. We are on schedule to announce our season, and we are planning a whole season. But what we are doing in planning that whole season, we are looking at opportunities and ways to continue the season and perhaps not perform in our normal space, moving shows to the outside. We've been in contact with the city, talking about some stages and things in the park. We will be doing our summer camp outside in Hackley Park, which is just a block or two away from here. We've made a deal with the city. And so we were able to do our 3 summer camps with kids outside there, which is a wonderful thing, since last year we had to cancel it totally. And we're working with them on perhaps, if we have to, moving our shows out of the theater, if we can't do them in the theater, into the parks, and being able to do them then. But we are planning on opening up and going forward again with masks. We are currently, rehearsing with Sister Act, which will be on stage outside. We are currently rehearsing that in person, 15 feet apart, with masks on, in music. And it's really interesting to rehearse something 15 feet apart from one another in an extremely well ventilated, huge room. Everybody's temperature is taken. We, maintain that, and we're proceeding with that, and we will be opening with that the end of April and May. And that's our plan so far.
Great. Let's jump over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Salerno. I represent in the Mitten Productions out of Novi in Farmington Hills, Michigan. We had an interesting year as well. We started out in last March with 3 shows we were running. We were doing James and the Giant Peach, Mamma Mia, and The Little Mermaid Junior. All of our we have children's theater, so all of our kids are between the ages of I guess grades kindergarten to 12th grade. So the kids were very disappointed when we had to shut all 3 shows down. And in the meantime, we were doing Zooms with the kids and the cast, trying to just keep morale up. We were really focused on our kids and wanted to make sure that they didn't feel abandoned, and everything kind of just shut down. So we would do a lot of Zooms. We would do sing-alongs with the songs that they were learning in the shows. And that kind of kept it going. And then we went into planning mode. We were like, how can we do different camps for these kids? How can we keep them involved? How can we keep them interested? So we came up with several ideas, and we ended up going forward with a few of them. We did, in the springtime, we did an outside Shakespeare camp. And we taught the kids Shakespeare monologues and how to use the Shakespearean language. And that was a lot of fun. The kids really enjoyed that. We got creative with distancing and masks, and everything was outside. The parents even got to come and watch their kids perform their monologues. So that was really cool. Then we ended up doing a 1940s radio hour where we taught the kids how people of the 40s did radio dramas, and we put on one ourselves. We found some free scripts online and we ended up doing that. The kids made their own sound effects. They were all distant and separated, and we encouraged our audience that time, which was their parents, to close their eyes and just listen. So we didn't really have to do a lot of acting. We just mainly focused on voice and sound effects, and the kids thought that was a blast. Then we took a break, and in December, we did something called the Santa interviews, and the kids had a blast with that too. We kind of had a family sing along where we made like a PowerPoint and had a whole bunch of Christmas songs and did the little play. We rehearsed online. It was all via Zoom. So we would have kids, have their screens dark, and then they would pop up, and then they would go dark, and then would pop up. It was actually kind of fun. The kids had their own costumes. Sometimes we had to supply them. So my producer would go to the costuming storage and go and find things and then drop them off at their houses if they needed them. So that made it kind of fun. Then we went into planning mode again, and we decided to go forward and do Shrek Jr. We auditioned via Zoom, 84 kids, and we casted all of them into 2 shows. We are currently in rehearsals for that. We're doing online rehearsals where we're mainly talking about character and trying to rehearse the songs, which is not exactly easy. A whole bunch of kids singing all at the same time on Zoom does not sound pretty, but they're having fun, and our music director is taking them one by one and working with them. Coming in April, we will be recording the songs with the kids, and we'll be doing it in a wide open space that we have at Novi Civic Theater, and we'll be recording them, distance, masks, everything. And then we'll lay that track over what we're going to be filming. So our production is going to be filmed scene by scene outside. We went, found a whole bunch of parks, and we found different locations like woods and that kind of stuff, which makes it really easy with Shrek because it's supposed to be mostly outside anyway. So we found different places, and we're going to be filming them and then laying the vocal track on top of that. And then we will be having a viewing weekend for our families. Where we will be selling like household tickets. So we'll stream it online. In addition to that, we also have a couple of radio plays that we're putting together via Zoom. One's the Twisted Tales of Poe. The other is a Jack and the Beanstalk, and then a Mad Tea Party. All various ages of kids. We're trying to make sure that we hit the different age groups. We even have something for our little preschoolers. They did a 3-week class. We called it a class. It was all on Zoom. They logged in and they created their own script. They made up their own characters, and then we took that input, and a fabulous coworker of mine, Miss Donna, took all of that and made a script. And so the kids had to say their lines, perform it, and then we recorded it, and we're going to be giving that to the parents. So we've been very busy with our kids trying to keep them interested, but it's been a lot of fun, and seeing their faces is just the best reward we could have.
I'm muted. The innovation that we're all doing is always amazing too. Great. I'll jump over to Rodel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rodel Salazar. I'm with the Stagecrafters theater group in Royal Oak, Michigan. As with everyone else, back in March of last year, we actually had one show opening the day that we had to shut down everything. So that was Working, which was very unfortunate because they were getting ready, and all of a sudden we decided that it was best to cancel the show, hoping that it was only for the weekend, but as we all know, it didn't happen that way. We were also in rehearsals for two other shows at that time, Mamma Mia and also Don't Drink the Water. So when everything was clear that it was not going to happen for us to reopen, our theater decided that all of the shows that were happening for the rest of the season would be canceled, except for Mamma Mia was moved to the following season, which was supposed to be happening right around now. And around November time, we decided that the season that we had slated for a later time, we normally start in July, is again not going to happen with all the surges that were happening in November and December. So we actually canceled the rest of the season again, but keeping Mamma Mia because we already had many people that bought the tickets. Then coming into to our upcoming season, we've decided to shorten our season because of the fact that we really don't know what's going to happen. But we're still going to be closing with Mamma Mia. But we also decided that with the other show that was in rehearsals, Don't Drink the Water, we were going to start with that. So with hopes that everything goes well, we'll open with that in September. Luckily, we partnered with another theater around the area, Ridgedale Players. So we were able to actually perform Working outside in their big grassy area where everyone was socially distanced. They blocked off squares that were allowed to have up to 4 people in those squares. It was very well done. Unfortunately, we were only able to do it for 2 weekends because when we decided to do that, it was already end of September, beginning of October, and it started to get colder. Right now, we have no plans on doing an outdoor show, although we are looking into doing another one and possibly partnering up again with Ridgedale. But at the moment, we're still looking for a show to do. However, we've done, as many of you, a lot of virtual shows. We've not done a whole lot with our adults, but a lot with our youth theater program. With our youth theater, we normally have a big summer show for them and then another one during the year. Because that didn't happen, we had a planned big Christmas show for them, which was a Christmas Carol. Fortunately, we found a version that you could do virtually, and we were able to present that this past Christmas. All of the children auditioned virtually. They rehearsed virtually as well. And when it came time to record the show, they came in all in one day, but in different times. So staggering the times and keeping them distant. Since then, we've actually done 2 other virtual shows, and we're actually working with 2 more shows upcoming. Another one with our youth theater and another one with our second stage theater. But as far as anything happening in the theater, we shut down the theater completely. Members weren't even really allowed to go into the theater unless they need to. But we also took that time to spruce up the theater. So we used this time to do a lot of renovations and painting and making Our Lady Baldwin what it was, because we were also hoping to celebrate the theater's 65th birthday. But unfortunately, we can't do that big celebration. As far as our next season, we are proceeding with announcing our season, hopefully by next month, with the hopes that we can actually open at our regular time. The only thing that we did change is that we normally open in July with our kids shows, but we decided not to do the kids show and push that to the following year and just open with the play starting in September. And we also decided with the play because it would be easier to socially distance a smaller cast, and also the notion that we looked at before, that a lot of the Broadway theaters were really looking into opening with plays first before doing musicals. As we all know, with a lot of the singing and dancing, that also causes a lot more of the air particles to flow. So right now we're hoping to open in September with Don't Drink the Water. So we're basically taking that show that was in rehearsal and hopefully bring it back in September. But the other thing that we did during this time is we focused a lot on fundraising because we couldn't do shows. We used the old style, sort of like a telephone thon. We had a whole bunch of our members that came in a couple of days and called a lot of our season ticket holders and asked them if they were willing to donate their season tickets to help out our organization. And then in the Christmas and early January time, we also used Facebook as a way to fundraise by using their similar GoFundMe kind of fundraising thing that they do. I forgot what it's called, but that's what we did. And it did really well for us. And we thank a lot of our patrons for helping us out with that.
Great, wonderful. Last but not least, Jamie Peterson. Yeah, you.
First of all, thank you so much for registering, coming together, being a part of the solution for reopening theaters all over the state. I'm from Escanaba. We are in the Upper Peninsula, very small community. I am with Players DeNolf Incorporated. We have been around for quite some time. We have a house of 240 seats. So not a tiny theater, but by no means a large theater. As the pandemic was hitting, we were ending up our season with the second to the last show. We were performing Mamma Mia. So quite a big musical, sold out, extra nights, all that kind of stuff. We worked very closely with our legislature from the state, ensuring that we were safe enough to stay open for the last two performances. We met all the requirements, everything went well. We closed the show, and unfortunately, we're not able to open the last show of our season, which was the Cemetery Club. So we've been holding that one in our back pocket for a little while now. We as a theater often will pay all of our season royalties in advance. So we had already chosen the next season. We had paid all of the royalties for the shows that should have been in production right now. And unfortunately, those are just held right at this time. Since the shutdown, our theater has tried to be fairly active. I'd like to think we have immediately kicked off with an original script, which we produced online, and you can see yourself if you like to check out YouTube. It's called Bear Cabin. So that was one of our members of Players DeNolf wrote a show. We performed it. We also participated in script reading as an organization, just to keep our members connected and active. And it was a fantastic way. I'm sure all of you have had members of your theater move away that you might miss, hopefully miss, maybe not. Anyway, we had members that moved away, so it was a great way to engage those people that were no longer in our community, get to see their faces, get to hear their voices and such. We also prepared to do an outdoor cemetery walk. Midland Center for the Arts, I stole the idea from them. I'm not taking any credit. This is not an original Jamie Peterson thought. But as we were coming into the fall of last year, we thought what a great way to engage our members partner with the Historical Society and also give the community something to do outside, something to do somewhat together. Started the planning and preparation, got a bunch of volunteers all ready to do it. And then unfortunately, COVID surged in our community quite significantly. And because of that surge, we decided to hold off, but kept all of our plans to hopefully execute it this year. Our theater also participated in radio shows, just like many of you have. A great way to engage the membership. We have actually just recently submitted our 30-minute preliminary show for Act Fest. We participate or try to participate every cycle in Act Fest. We find it to be very valuable for our theater and the growth of our individual members. So it would be terrible for us not to be able to participate again. And this year, obviously, it is virtual, but we did everything we could to put together a fantastic, again, another original show involving a lot of technology, a lot of projection, a lot of virtual content. We actually partnered with a composer and musician from Chicago. So right here, way up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, however you're going to see that up there, we've got a musician who comes in every night to rehearsal via streaming. The theater has also decided to open up with a kind of a half season, just like Rodel's company is doing. And they've chosen a couple of shows to move forward with. And we're also in talks to produce an outdoor play this summer, working with our local fairgrounds. We were looking to do Charlotte's Web in a barn at the fair with kids. So I can't imagine it getting any better than that. Can't imagine how well that's going to smell in July, but I'm excited. So yes, we're doing everything we can. We are stealing ideas from other people and hopefully sharing some good ideas with theaters as well. So we're here to try to answer your questions and hopefully learn a little bit about what you guys are doing as well.
Thanks, Jamie. And I think that's one of the biggest things is, you know, we're all sharing our ideas and what we have done and what the future is going to be. I know the saddest day of my life was March 13th, we were right in the middle of Matilda and having those kids and having to tell them to pack up their stuff and they weren't going to be able to complete that show was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my theater career for sure. Let's jump into, we've got a lot of questions that have come in. So let's jump in and start to answer some of these questions. And panelists, I'm going to ask you the first question that actually came by email. And I want to remind everybody, please, once we get done tonight, if you have other questions that you think of at 2 a.m., because that's usually when questions pop in my head, please let us know. Send us an email at ctamthrives@gmail.com, and I will forward it to the panelists or we will answer it individually. Also, so everybody knows who is part of this, we are going to send everyone through an email. Our panelists have put together reopening procedures and guidelines and information that they have been using in their theaters. We're going to forward that to everyone who's attending this webinar so that you will have that information in hand. And please reach out to anybody with your questions because the panelists are all available to answer anything you have. The first question I'm going to ask the panelists is coming from Grosse Pointe Theater. And their question is can you require all cast and crew to be vaccinated? And how do we address vaccine with audiences? Anybody go. Jamie, go ahead.
Yes. So can you require someone to get a vaccine? You cannot require someone to get a vaccine, even though you are running an organization who maybe you can no shirt, no shoes, no service. Unfortunately, that does not work with these types of medical procedures. So you cannot require your volunteers to get a vaccine. There's no legal standpoint for you to have or hold on to. I believe taking a stance like that could be more detrimental to the members of your theater, as I would hope everybody would be on the same page to try to do the best thing for the community, the state, the country, the world. People have their own opinions and values, and trying to force them to do that might divide your membership. Did I cover that?
Yeah.
I think so. I think so. All right, let's jump right in. Next question we have that has come in. Does anybody know if there's any small black box theaters in the state of Michigan who are opening for indoor performances this summer?
We turn our proscenium stage.
Amy.
We turn our proscenium stage into a black box every summer, where we build risers and put chairs on stage. And we fully intend to still do that this June. We're able to fit 50 seats on stage in such a way so that they can be socially distanced, and that is what we're gonna do. So yes is the easy answer.
Great. I think one of the bigger questions that comes in, and I know when I was doing the ACT webinars, this was a huge question, and we got a couple questions pertaining to it. So the first part of the question has anybody changed over for air purifiers in your auditoriums? And what are you doing for disinfecting your theaters? So you can either answer both or part, but let me know what each of you have set up so far. Jump in, whomever.
So as far as air purifiers, we have not technically looked into getting air purifiers. However, as far as cleaning the theaters, we've looked at several things, but have not really made any actual decision, because of the fact that we're still looking at how things are going to be come 6 months from now when we actually open, because things could change again. So we're not making final decisions. We are looking at certain things, but as far as air purifiers goes, we haven't really seen a whole lot of information that really pertains to theaters, because many of the theaters have closed. So no one really knows what's going to happen. With restaurants, they did talk about that, because with that, you can't have your mask when you're eating and when you're talking with people. But in a theater, because if you require your audiences to keep their mask on while watching the performance, then there's less air that could go around. But it doesn't mean that we're not looking into a system that would help us, purify the air as well.
Anybody else doing purifying, or just go ahead, Kirk?
Well, I just know that our theater is being renovated right now, and making sure, I think that the one thing is that if you have an air handling system that brings in air, that one, you are bringing in 10%, a minimum of 10% outside air with every operation, and keeping that running, and then it'll exhaust that 10% as well. So it's the object that I believe most restaurants are working on right now, is that 10% air exchange.
Yeah, I know at Grand Rapids Civic, we're working side by side with the Kent County Health Department on any decisions we've made. One of the things that they told us was the 10%. So we actually bumped our indoor air take almost, it's above 20 right now. The other thing that they said is if after a show or before a show, if you could have doors that open. So we have a garage door in the back that we can open, and open up the lobby door. So we're flushing the air from backstage all the way through the house, and then right back out the doors, be able to close them to heat up the place again, or to cool it off, depending if it's summer or not. But that was one of the things that Kent County Health Department. So I encourage everyone to call your local county health department and work with them one-to-one, because they'll tell you what you're doing or not doing. We're also disinfecting the arms of the seats. So after every show, the seats totally get wiped down with disinfectant. Bathrooms, we'll have volunteers at the bathrooms who will also be keeping the restrooms. We're also not doing shows with intermission, so there is no intermission of people going back and forth. And I provided in the packet of information going on our front of house procedures of how they will be bringing people in once we open, how they're bringing people in and excusing people at the same time, because it's not, hanging out in the lobby, folks, and, giving hugs and kisses after the show. That's not going to be for a year or more. Anybody else have anything else different that they're doing? Another big question that comes in, and we've been bouncing this back and forth, so I'm kind of curious of what you guys think. Are you planning to do temperature checks, one, on employees, patrons and volunteers, where is everybody standing with that? Amy?
We do temperature checks before every rehearsal. Anyone who comes in the back door for rehearsal gets their temperature checked. We don't do it as often with employees, but we don't have employees. So I mean, it's me and a vaccinated box office manager. So that's what we've been doing. We did not do temperature checks with our patrons as they came in, but we have on our website that we may decide to do that. And we're basing that kind of on, where cases are and where vaccinations are in our county. Right now, case rates aren't great in Saginaw County, but vaccination rates are. So we're just kind of keeping an eye on that and making our decisions as we go.
Jamie, did you guys do temperature checks for your cast coming in?
No, we did not. But in our reopening policy, we talk about the self-screening. And I know that we can dive into this even further. It might not be a great time to talk about it, but self-screening, obviously, coughing, fever, fatigue, illness, temperature, all of these things. If you're experiencing any of them, you do not attend rehearsal. You do not attend performance. You do not come to the theater. You do not have any interaction. I want to take it one step further. In the show that we're working on right now, one of the actors' children drew a fever. Fever went away after 24 hours, no issue, but it came back. So in our guidance with our reopening plan, it says, if you are experiencing these issues, or if you have reason to quarantine by direct contact of a person with a positive case. So here we had a person who had a child running a temperature. The child had not yet been tested. The person was not experiencing any symptoms. The policy that our theater instituted really says nothing about this person having to stay away. The other cast members became very concerned, and they did not want this person at rehearsal. So that was something that was not specifically addressed, not included in our reopening guidelines. The individual did bring their child in, did have the COVID testing, did quarantine with them while the test results were coming back. Nothing more, than just a fever. Everything came back negative. But I found it very interesting to have those discussions with your group, to make those expectations very clear at how you are going to adhere to that reopening plan and what should really be in it. Because here was an instance where I thought that plan looked great. We had everything covered. But then when this little incident happened, the rest of the cast felt very uncertain, and even talked about removing the person from the cast. So it was interesting to be around and then navigate the solution.
Has anybody heard of My Symptoms? The state of Michigan has a My Symptoms app that you can use, and that's what Grand Rapids Civic is using, not only for our cast members, but for all of our students coming in for classes, because we started classes again as well. And it's a My Symptoms, and they have to do it. It goes right into, and so we can see, and it asks all those questions that Jamie was talking about, the fever, all the symptoms. If they answer yes to anything, then they're not coming into the theater, period, end of story. Any of those symptoms, they don't come in. As soon as they're cleared, they're back. And then we set it up so that if it's a class, then they're doing Zoom so we just brought everything back in so they could Zoom with their same class at the same time. Is anybody else using anything else for health checks?
We have a self-disclosure form that everyone's required to sign when they come in that has all of those symptoms. I mean, we have 2 pages of COVID-19 precautions, which is the thing that the paperwork that I shared with you, Mary Jo. And I have gone through that, line by line, just to make sure that there can't ever be well, you didn't tell me that, and I give the cast and crew the opportunity to ask questions. so that we can make sure that they're all completely addressed. In our show in November, we did have a cast member show up at like first dress with a fever, and the rule that we had was if you have a fever, now 98.6 is considered normal, but really, I mean, if you're anything under 100 degrees, you're fine, based on medical expertise. But this person came in with a fever that was concerning. We temped him 3, 4, 5 times, and we had to send him home. And our policy is that if you show up to 2 rehearsals with a fever in a row, then you have to produce a negative COVID test, and quarantine until then. Luckily he came back the next day and everything was fine. But we do have kind of variations on the same thing for our volunteers.
Yeah. I just want to make mention for all of our attendees, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A, because we'll get to them as soon as we can, but please drop them into the question and answer section. We're not watching the chat as much, so at this point, but I want to jump back to mask. We've had several questions about mask and what what people are using for mask, I believe, for your performances and if you're doing any type of singing. So someone jump in maybe who's been using a lot of masks.
So we are planning on with our kids for Shrek to make masks a part of the costume. So the bear family will have masks that look like bears. The rats will have masks that look like rats, that kind of thing. So it's going to be incorporated with their costume. And with us recording the singing and laying it over, it kind of cuts down on that, muffled sound when you're outside and the mask and not being able to hear the kids very well. So that's how we're addressing it. So the kids will be able to be closer together because they'll have masks that match their costumes.
Great. Anybody else with masks?
We did chin shields in November, but since the ones that strap on like this and then go up to above your nose, but since then shields have been deemed not as safe. So for this show, Superior Donuts is opening tomorrow. We actually purchased, I mean, they're just like the regular masks, but they've got clear plastic. And I've either got really great actors, because I know I don't have a really great sound system, but you can hear them pretty well through that. And one thing I would recommend if you're going to go that way, the plastic tends to stick to cheeks. So what you want to do is put like a little bit of foam on the nose piece and on the chin piece, and you want to do it long enough so that you don't end up with gaps, right? But it does get the mask off of people's faces, which helps with everything. We have canceled all of our musicals, so I don't have anything to add about singing, but that's what I would say about the clear masks.
Yeah, the clear masks are nice so you can see their face, but it really depends on that mic placement, because otherwise they're just muffled and it's really hard to hear. So you really have to work with that. Let's jump into what's everyone's thoughts on doing larger productions of 20 or more individuals?
So that's one of the reasons, again, why we decided to open with the play with less actors to work with. And it'll be easier for you to rehearse certain scenes where you don't necessarily need to have a big ensemble. And the fact also, big ensembles usually tend to mean musicals, and we're doing our musicals a little bit more later into the season. With the notion that when they are going to start rehearsals, we hope that we're in a much better place. But I know that once we get things rolling, all of the social distancing and also wearing masks would still be considered or applied to rehearsals as well. But as far as having big ensembles, the problem I think that you're going to have, especially if you are thinking of doing a musical, is that a lot of musicals tend to be very close. Like your ensemble is going to have to be close, or even if you are working on shows that even have 1 or 2 people or 3 in a scene, it might be very intimate as well. So that's really going to pose a lot of problems. So you want to kind of like stay away from that unless you start rethinking about how you would choreograph or block a certain scene, or the way you want to focus that production. But if you're having a lot of people, it's going to be harder for you to really focus on that and still be able to have the show that you want. So my suggestion for a lot of people, if you are thinking of doing a musical, possibly not doing a big ensemble a show, or lessen your people in the ensemble.
That's kind of what we've done with Sister Act, in the fact that we're just using the 16 main characters, and there will be double casting of other people reading lines and stuff. But that gives them the smaller group to have on the stage, even though it's outside. We decided to do that because of rehearsals and with masks, and it eliminates a lot of the issues that you can have with groups of more than 16 just staying apart. And we're doing it a concert version. We're saying a concert version. It's going to be the front of the stage one at a time or spread out. There's not going to be the intimacy that you would probably see in this show. And the chase scene is going to be done not with people moving, but with things moving without them. So we're trying to be as creative to do that as possible. So.
Are you guys using understudies or double casting just in case someone gets COVID?
No.
Anybody doing that at all?
I wish we did. we ended up with a couple of scares. So if you can, I would.
Yeah, we had 2 casts for our radio show, Christmas Carol. We had a red cast and a green cast just for that purpose, that if someone wasn't able or came down, because that's again when we were spiking. So if anybody came down with COVID, the cast could be, we could replace. So yeah, it is a thought process. Another question that came through is, because of the financial constraints that we've all had during this pandemic, who's had some really creative fundraising ideas and, maybe share something really cool so others could steal? Go ahead, whomever.
I think the fire pit follies or the driveway cabarets are one of the most creative ways to do fundraising. People seem to really appreciate that, and we did quite well financially, and I know that Grand Rapids Civic did quite well financially with those, and it was nice, and most of the times we got more money than we had asked for. So
I was a huge fan. We did I had the pleasure of participating in a roundtable with AACT a few weeks ago, and one of the theaters from Washington, I don't believe it was the Tacoma Little Theater, but out in that area, did a fantastic fundraiser. It turned out to be wonderfully received, and it was entitled "Don't Come." It was a letter sent out like you would receive before a large gala fundraiser, and you could select. It was a little cafe plan of what you didn't want to do. I don't want to get dressed up. I don't want to put on makeup. I certainly don't want to mingle with people I don't know. It was a wonderfully creative letter about all the things that you really don't want to do and how much you would pay not to have to do that. And they had a wonderful response from the fundraiser. It was very, very successful. Another very easy fundraiser that was passed on to me by another theater was this theater. Fortunately for them, they did have a friend of one of their members that was a copywriter. And we all love a wonderful wordsmith. And this particular individual drafted a wonderful letter talking about $10. What is really $10 anyway? Your cup of coffee or your double Frappa icy, shaky, whatever it is, or that extra donut going through the drive-through, whatever it might be. And it was simply a letter that was a $10 ask, which is a little bit less than their normal ticket price goes. And the response was something like well over 60% of their patrons responded with $10 and many $100 donations from these very basic letters. Now, on a personal side of things, I'm also I'm the treasurer for the state of Michigan's, or CTAM itself, but I'm also the treasurer for a local youth performing arts group called Spotlights here in Escanaba. And it is not unusual for us to raise $10,000 through a letter. We have a very small community here. You know, we're talking 15,000 people. And it is, if you are not sending letters, by all means start. That will help.
Yeah, I know the Twin City Players here in Michigan also did a no-show show, which is the same type of concept, and I know they've raised some nice funds with that.
By the way, it was hilarious.
With the way their promo that they have, if you guys haven't seen their promo was so cute about the no-show show, and yeah, that was adorable. I got that, and I thought that was cool.
When I saw Larry Nielsen crying at the like refreshment counter in his theater, that was all I needed. So Twin City Players, find them on Facebook. Yep. Look at that video. That's inspiration for you guys.
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
For the fundraising, we encouraged our families to right around Christmas time add us to Amazon Smile. And so when they were buying Christmas presents and just, you know, your average Amazon delivery, I know I get several a day, that was helpful, and our theater group raised some money off of that.
Sorry, we had some questions. I'm trying to send a link for Singer's Mask here. So, okay. There is a link for Singer's Mask. If people are asking, it is the BroadwayReliefProject.com Singer's Mask. It is in the chat right now. So if you go into the chat, there is a link to the plastic clear Singer's Mask, and I think that's what a lot of people are using, but you can also just Google it. That's what we did. We just kept Googling, you know, clear plastic mask. We kept getting information from other theaters across the United States, and we just kept ordering until we found the one that we felt was the right one for us to use. Like Amy said, we did add some styrofoam on each side so that it wasn't so tight. It was a little bit more comfortable for the actors. Some of our actors was like, this is uncomfortable. Well, you know, you want to perform or you want to be uncomfortable, take your pick. You know, this is what you have to do, and that's the way it is. So check out that information there for the mask. One of the questions that came up, Sarah, one of the things in the chat stuff was how, we have a couple of questions. This is pertaining to two. How did you get streaming rights to Shrek Jr.? Because they didn't think that was able to do. And the other question is anyone having any difficulty with MTI or any of the publishing houses on trying to stream your shows?
So we were able to get it. My producer told me that there's a few ways we could do it. And I found it right here on their website. It says, this is the version we're doing it. Upload a pre-recorded video of your event or previous production for purchase and watch on demand. So that's how we're doing it with the families buying tickets through Showtix, and they'll just get to stream it one time, and that's that. It's kind of like watching a movie on Disney Plus.
Anybody else with your rights of talking in issues or non-issue, or
just be very clear as to how you plan to perform the show. Dramatists and play scripts, these people are all doing wonderful jobs lining up a whole list of shows that are available to stream. But if you do not carefully disclose how you are performing the show, you could be making a no-no. And you have to be very, very careful about it. If you're going to be doing a pay-per-view where you're going to be streaming on a number of days, each one of those days needs to be considered a performance. Every one of the playwright houses are very used to having this conversation. These are the best people to talk to. They're going to give you a list of things that can help fit the needs that you have as a theater. So please reach out. And I also want to plug AACT is also doing a number of webinars with these theater rights companies that you can tune in on. You can ask your questions directly with dramatists. I think Mary Jo was dramatist last week. Was that last Tuesday? Or
I think
very,
so.
and so you can actually go onto the AACT website and you can actually find some of these recorded webinars, and also to AACT's Facebook page, where they also have some of the live streamed webinars they've been doing right on their Facebook feed. And you can talk right to these clearinghouses, these rights houses.
Oh, go ahead, Amy.
It's also important to be aware of preferred streaming platforms.
Oh, yes.
That was something that we ran into. Certain publishers will require you to, they don't say require, but they do say that you have to get written permission to use something other than the one that is pre-approved. Our experience was that we could not even get permission for one that was not pre-approved. So be aware of the streaming platforms that are allowed by the publishers. Usually they make it very well known on their homepage, said, Showtix for You is pre-approved, or Broadway on Demand is pre-approved. It might not be a bad idea to either familiarize yourself with multiple platforms, streaming platforms, or we kind of found that we really liked Showtix for You, and so we stuck with Concord and Dramatists and scripts that could be streamed, or publishers that stream with and partner with Showtix for You.
Great. Oh, go ahead, Rodel.
And one other thing, you also want to check for some of you who have your own kind of ticketing service that you use. You also want to kind of check that it doesn't conflict with your contract with that ticketing service, because when we were doing our virtual cabaret, we thought that there might be something that could go wrong, because at that time we were using Vendini, but then we had to do the Showtix for our virtual cabaret, and so we had to make sure that it was going to work out and not cause a problem. So you want to look at that one as well.
Great. Well, we're after 8 o'clock, but we said we were going to go after anyway. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to start going through these questions, and let's just see how many we can knock out in the next 10 minutes or so. First one is, when will theaters be able to announce their upcoming seasons? Does that depend on COVID? You announce my opinion, announce your season when you feel comfortable. Anybody disagree?
No.
Are you guys all using Zoom for your auditions and rehearsals?
I'm using Zoom for part of my rehearsals, and I did use Zoom for all of our auditions. It's an easier way to handle a large number of people coming through to audition, and it worked pretty well.
Same thing, we use Zoom and it's working pretty well.
We set up a Google Drive and encourage people to send in video auditions, but we also schedule live auditions. All of the directors are expected to pull monologues from the script as opposed to scenes. So we do single person scheduled auditions if people prefer live.
Good. What program or software is being used to edit the various individual Zoom sessions or to create one show? I guess mainly more your editing programming that you're using for shows. Streaming. Sarah, are you using any type of program when you guys put this whole thing together for your Shrek? Is that going to be, are you using any type of editing system?
Yes, we're using Adobe Pro.
Anything
Adobe
else?
Pro.
Amy, you just went through a lot of this. Are you using anything specific or?
Did you say Amy or Jamie?
Jamie, sorry. Jamie. Or did, yeah, you, Mr. Peterson. I'll go that route, Mr. Peterson.
No, as far as editing goes, we, for what we were doing with AACT, we weren't allowed to do any editing to my knowledge, because it was a straight shot, single camera, static recording. For our other virtual shows that we presented, we did not do any specific editing or use any programs. So we haven't needed to blend voices or anything like that.
Okay.
Ours was Adobe, all of the Adobe products, Adobe Audition and Adobe Pro.
For one of our youth theater, luckily we had one youth member whose father works as a video, not a videographer, but does a lot of like editing and things like that. So he was able to provide us his services for our youth theater, which he's going to do again for our upcoming youth theater virtual show.
Okay, next question is a three-parter. Theaters selling tickets electronically only. Are you allowing people to watch the show live remotely or streaming, and then to access the recorded show afterwards? I know we did Broadway on Demand, which worked out a pretty good way for us to do that, so that we were just sending them the link for Broadway on Demand, and then we got paid through Broadway on Demand. Anybody else doing anything differently?
No, that's most of the ways they have it, because that's how they're collecting part of their royalties. So
yeah, I mean, we're only when we do start selling tickets, and I don't know how, Amy, you guys are handling this, where our tickets are only going to be purchased online. There will be no tickets purchased in person, at least for the next few months. So tickets will only be able to be purchased online through our ticketing software. Our ticketing software right now actually has the social distancing aspect. So when you click on 2 seats, it'll automatically social distance around them, so that it's done automatically. So there's no cash sales, because someone was concerned about the cash sales. How's Pit and Balcony handling that part of it?
Well, we're doing all of it. So we've got the online, and we also have our box offices open for over the phone and in-person sales. Obviously you have to be masked to come in. Most people are not coming in. Everyone is masked. But we also, so the way that we decided to do this way back when was that instead we didn't have the ability to, have our software automatically socially distance. So we are selling all of our tickets online, general admission. And then our box office manager is hand picking seats and social distancing people as the tickets come in. It is a lot more work for her, but she's really good at what she does. We used to have Vendini also, and the switch over to audience view has caused a little bit more of a mess for this one, but we've kind of managed our way through it by doing it that way and making sure that everyone can be distanced and safe.
Is anybody having your actors or crew sign waivers for any type of, yeah, you're having them sign waivers?
We have them sign waivers when we're not in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, waivers are a good idea. Do that.
Yeah, see, we don't have waivers, so I'm always curious on that. We don't have waivers. Does anyone know if rules will be changed?
You don't have waivers?
No.
You should have a waiver for your volunteers coming in.
They sign, I don't call it a waiver. They have a volunteer application to where they fill it out. We don't technically call it a waiver. So you could say, yes, we have waivers, but I don't call it a waiver.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but it does waive the theater's liability.
It waives, it's a photo release. It's there's all the check marks that they have to do, but it's not technically called a waiver. It just never.
Every theater should have a waiver.
I don't like that word, so I never call it a waiver. But yeah, we have them sign their life away. We have them sign their life away, actually. Yes. Kids, okay. You say kids can be closer due to mask. Do community health guidelines allow for less social distancing for mask waivers?
Well, our kids are outside and they are wearing masks. So we're still keeping the 6 feet, but I mean, they're kids. So they run around and they get close and we do our best. So
Well, and I think the school system now has actually said 3 feet for the school systems. They actually can get 3 feet, I believe. I'm not a school teacher, but I believe that's what I heard. Singers, man. I'm just trying to read these really quick. Jamie, I might need you to help me to go through these quicker. Time of walk-ups. I'm just trying to get these. Then the packet includes sample waiver. Will someone send me what you guys have your actors sign, and we'll put that in the packet because someone
Mary
wants.
Jo, will you
You want me to send mine? I could do mine. It's about, I call mine a volunteer application. So
Yes.
mine is
Yeah.
a volunteer application, and then as every cast and crew gets assigned, they fill it out. If I have one on file, they don't have to fill it out again. So
Just
I
a
keep
quick-
them all on file.
Just a quick addendum to that is that if you are doing shows with children and adults, it is your responsibility to make sure that there is nothing standing in that adult's way from working with children.
Correct.
That is you should certainly be of those theaters that might not be using waivers right now or volunteer agreements or whatever the pretty name Mary Jo has on them. You should certainly be doing that because you do have to have these people attest that there's nothing that would bar them from working with a youth actor or actress for everybody's safety.
We
including
were told that provision had to be a separate sheet, that signing for the background check must be a separate sheet all by itself. So
correct.
and include that with your other waivers.
Okay. Have any of the theaters done a drive-through theater? Audience drives through the 1X with live short 10 minutes, 2 to 3 people, 1X. Drive through, watch 1 act, then drive to the next, watch that act, and so on. Has anybody done anything like this or heard of anything like
I have just
That's
heard
really
about this
cool.
yesterday. And I was intrigued by it, but there is somebody who is doing, I believe it's a 3-act play, and you drive from one location to another and you sit for about 15 minutes watching one play. But no, I have not done it. I was intrigued by it. I was going, okay, that sounds interesting.
Cool. I think I've gone through as quickly as I can, and I apologize for going as faster here at the end, but I wanted to make sure we're at least out of here by 8:30 and not keeping people longer than we promised. Just to reiterate, I want to thank all of our panelists, Jamie and Sarah, Rodel, Kurt, and Amy. Thank you so much for being part of this tonight. CTAM is going to try to do more webinars as we come up here for future. One of the ones to please keep watch of our social media will be on April 22nd. We have an Emmy Award-winning production designer by the name of Randy Hoover, who will be doing a webinar, and we'll be sending out information on that soon to let you all know what will be happening with that. Please, if you have questions after this webinar, please go to our website and go to ctamthrives@gmail.com and ask any questions that you want. We'll pass this along to the panelists. And remember that anybody who's attended tonight, we will send the packet of information for the guidelines that everyone has put together in their theaters. And please reach out and let them know if you have questions of what they have done and need to know. Mr. Peterson.
Actually, your packet should have already been sent out to you to your email account that you used to register for tonight's event. It was sent out in a zip format, so you may have a little difficult time trying to open it up on your phone. So I would recommend you using your desktop or your laptop to extract and unzip all of those files, and you're going to find some useful information. One last thing to add from myself as a CTAM board member, all of you that are looking at things that you have already accomplished or things that you need to, do not forget that we are all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Every single member of the CTAM board and so many other theaters around the state are so willing to help answer questions, provide resources, insight, perhaps share costumes or set pieces to help lower the cost of your production. Whatever it is, we will help you find an answer for. So please reach out. If you didn't hear your question answered, send it to us on the website. Someone will be in contact with you. We have a peppering of CTAM board members and committee members all over the state. And if it's something that you are interested in getting more involved in, please contact us as well. I'm sure we have a place for you.
And remember, those zip drives don't open because someone just said that. Please let us know and we will send it to you in a different way so that you will have all the information as well. Just again, email us at the ctmthrives@gmail.com and we'll make sure that we get that information to you. With that, I think I just saw a couple more things pop in, but it looks like they were just thank you so much. So I want to thank everyone once again. We hope you have a good evening and let's do great theater here in the next year.